Yes, Girish, we will be sharing the presentation. Well, why don't we get her going? And this is being recorded, so be available post-webinar for those that were not able to necessarily make it or wanted to check out the recording. Hello, everyone. My name is Yosh Eisbart. I am the North American sales lead for VASS for our ERP practice. And thank you for coming to the first of several VASS webinars in our educational series. In today's session, we'll be focusing on AI, specifically within the business or the SAP Business AI world, and BTP, the technology platform. All the slides will be shared, and then we'll also provide a download link for the code later. Our presenters are Emanuele and Michael. Both are seasoned SAP technologists, published authors, and AI gurus. Next slide, please. A little bit of overview of who we are for those that may not be familiar with VASS. VASS, we are a global digital transformation company. We have specific practices around different types of solutions and softwares. We are part of the SAP Business Suite group. We do have other practices that are complementary. We are a SAP license resell partner along with a consulting practice that has different types of focuses. From a portfolio perspective, we work within ERP, both Grow and Rise, public cloud and private cloud, along with ECC. We have a robust BTP practice, which AI and analytics are a part of, which Michael and Emanuele are a part of. And we also then do a great amount of work within the CX space to help complement and to provide overall business suite. We are a global organization with over 5,000 consultants across 40 countries and 4 continents. And with that, I will hand it over to you, Michael.
Thank you so much for the warm intro, everybody. Hope you're excited to learn about SAP BTP and SAP Business AI today. I'm super excited to share. I know Emanuele is super excited to share. We had the opportunity to present some content at SAP Insider. It was well received. We continue to do pilots and projects with customers, and I hope you're ready to learn. So the Gen AI story, we know the facts and the figures. If you're not doing Gen AI, you're lagging behind. I think one thing, though, that some people forget is that AI can benefit business process areas everywhere, whether that's IT, onboarding and offboarding employees, or procurement for purchase order matching, goods receipt, goods issue, for customer service. I think that's an area that we all know AI is focused on, is sales and customer service. But we're actually using AI in the warehouse, as an example, in manufacturing for production order forecasting, for inbound delivery, unload planning, and resource planning. But to set the stage, I want to talk real briefly, and again, just 3-4 minutes, on what are the different areas that AI can support us. In terms of content creation, I think everyone knows this story. You ask AI to write a poem or write a great birthday card or a good wedding speech, and OpenAI or Gemini are really, really great at content creation. And when we think about content creation, another way to think about it is technical manuals and specifications. I mean, we have a customer that is a global manufacturer of couplings and hoses, a very sexy business, building couplings and hoses for industrial applications. And their spec sheets are in 5 languages, and they want to take those into 25 languages. Well, we can use AI to take specification manuals, master data information, and generate content, generate new manuals, new spec sheets in different languages. That's a great use case for AI. In terms of automating information processing, I talked a little bit before about invoice matching, right? Automate the processing of invoices that are being received, lockbox information coming in, matching payments, right? Automate information processing. So in each of these areas, I've got some examples of processes where AI can support us. So in one scenario, we can use AI to create summaries or translate content or summarize content For example, if we're looking at incidents coming in from the field, potentially from a customer reporting incidents, we could summarize information, get sentiment analysis. I mean, SAP HANA has been able to do sentiment analysis for over a decade now, if people remember, but AI can do it very fast and very quickly for us as well. In the scenario of content creation, I already talked about product catalogs and spec sheets, being able to generate reviews, summarize, create new versions, or translate those. Simplifying access to information is honestly one of the AI scenarios that we see most. Today, Emanuele will live demo an AI agent that you can converse with through a web interface or through a Microsoft Teams interface, where we can ask it questions about outbound deliveries, inbound deliveries, sales orders, things like that. So just simplifying access to information. What's the status of the sales order? What's the status of this customer's last sales order? Those types of questions. Simplifying access to information. But on the lower right, internal policies. I joined VASS, a 5,000 employee company, multiple countries, multiple languages, policies written in Spanish originally and then translated to English. We can actually use SAP Business AI to ground an LLM with my internal company documentation. So I can not only ask questions about the latest invoice for a customer in SAP, but I can also ask it about where do I submit my expenses and what are the expense policies. It can handle all of it. I can do that with SAP Business AI, which is very cool. In terms of diverse suggestions and ideas, I think a lot of times this is broken down into next best action. What is the next best action on a customer's incident? We see this from SAP delivered with the CX toolkit. A customer has reported a concern. What's the next best action based on troubleshooting documentation, product manuals, conversation history with other customers, right? Next best action. We can also use custom AI to do that as well. What's the next best action for a salesperson in a sales cycle? Customer is received maybe a quote or an estimate or an SOW on a project. What are the next best things that salesperson can do? We can do that with AI agents. We can build that on SAP Business AI. And we can augment decision-making. Today, I'm gonna go through a use case of planning inbound deliveries and unloading of trucks. Well, an operations manager or an inbound inventory supervisor has to plan for how many people do I need to unload these trucks at these different times of the day. That's augmented decision-making, right? Using AI to augment the decisions that a shipping supervisor or receiving supervisor needs to make throughout their day to make them more efficient. And this is a great area that we see a lot of use cases for projects with AI. Next one is monitoring business conditions. One example is a customer that's using project systems and monitoring projects that are out of compliance or heading towards delays or not meeting certain milestones or deadlines on time. That is an example of an AI agent monitoring business conditions. But let's talk about AI agents. And before I talk about AI agents specifically, I want to also highlight that VASS is an SAP partner. We don't work for SAP. We are an SAP customer. We run S4, just like other S4 customers out there. We run BTP. We run SAP tools just like our customers do. And SAP is continuing to enhance and deploy SAP Joule. SAP Joule is available for those customers that are on S4HANA Rise or S4HANA Grow. The foundation of SAP Joule is SAP Business AI, and that's what this presentation today is focused on. How can I build custom applications with SAP Business AI? How can I build my own AI agents against my on-premise systems or my cloud-based systems and have the flexibility to deploy custom AI agents that are specific to my business? So SAP Joule is a fantastic offering. SAP continues to have a clear roadmap for SAP Joule, specifically with the Joule agent builder that ideally, I think we're going to hear more about it at Sapphire. We're going to hear more about it in Q3 this year. But Joule is a fantastic product. And this is an additional option for you as an SAP customer to use SAP Business AI to build and deploy AI agents on BTP, leveraging open source technologies, leveraging common development frameworks, and connecting that with your SAP environment. I'm going to go through some architecture diagrams, and we're going to go through our BTP tenant here at VASS and show you the applications running on Cloud Foundry, using a cloud connector, using a destination, using Business AI in order to deliver an AI agent on BTP. So Back to the content. AI agents, many definitions, many types. The most basic levels, a fixed automation agent. It's repetitive, it's structured. It does the same thing over and over and over. Very little decision making. It may or may not need access to external tools. And I receive a form in a standard structured format. Maybe it's an Excel template. Maybe it's a PDF form. I take data from the form and I maybe call an OData service in S4 and I create a purchase requisition or a purchase order or a quotation. Something's happened. It's very structured though, right? That's a fixed automation agent. Next, we're getting into LLM powered agents, which I think why everybody is here today is to learn about React reasoning meets action agents and grounded intelligence agents, right? AI agents that have access to real-time data, like your S4 transactional data, like data in SAP HANA, like data in DataSphere or Business Data Cloud now, and it's grounded in some way. It has policy documents, procedure documents, potentially routings from production, right, to understand how a product is put together, spec sheets from master data teams on the specifications of products, part guides, part catalogs, that grounded intelligence to give the agent in a manufacturing scenario the knowledge of what are the components of a product being built and assembled, what are the repair instructions for these products that we've deployed in the field, like grounded intelligence. Today, we're going to show you and give you code, sample code, for a tool-enhanced agent, an agent that has the ability to use tools. An AI agent tool can be a tool to integrate with Office 365 and read an email or have access to a mailbox, to create an Excel document, to read from Excel or a CSV, to access SharePoint as a tool. A tool can also be accessing S4HANA OData services. Many of us here on the call probably know about api.sap.com, where I can browse a catalog of S4 APIs based on my S4 version. Am I running S4 1705, 2020, 2023? I have APIs in S4 that are used by SAP and Fiori apps, but those same APIs are available to me as a customer to use as well. Right? So tool-enhanced agents. Then we have memory-enhanced agents. These are getting a little bit more complex from a compute perspective, but for example, when Yosh wants to use an AI agent to ask about customer invoices, with a memory-enhanced agent, it remembers that he asked about Pacific Coast last time or XYZ customer last time. And so when he says, show me the last invoice I asked about, it has that memory to know he last asked about a specific customer's invoice. And then the last two we're not demoing here, sadly, which is the environment controller type AI agents. These are AI agents that are integrated to PLCs potentially on the shop floor to respond to IoT sensor data to make changes to the run rate of a piece of equipment or machinery, or maybe even to automatically send new work instructions to a automated forklift, as an example, right? An AMR, some sort of robot integration, right? So environment controllers, AI agents can call APIs, and a lot of AMRs and robotic operations or palletizers or different types of equipment in the warehouse can have APIs available, and AI agents can control them. And then lastly, the autonomous learning, adaptable, scalable, cutting-edge research, autonomous AI systems, aka I call it Skynet. We're not talking about those today. We're not building those today. But driving through some examples, fixed automation agent. I think the greatest example of this is SAP Build Process Automation, right? Leveraging SAP Build BPA to extract text from an invoice, an example, and enter the details in S4HANA. It's very structured, it's repeatable, and I'm processing it over and over and over, and I'm automating what someone might do, and so replacing manual data entry. That's an example of a fixed automation agent. There's no LLM involved, there's no sort of AI involved, but it's business process automation or a fixed automation agent. The next agent that we want to talk about is a React RAG agent, right? So we've performed some sort of RAG, some sort of grounding or intelligence with an LLM. And when I say LLM, I have had this come up before, we're talking about a large language model, like OpenAI, like Mistral, like Claude, like Gemini. And what I typically tell people is to think of the LLM as a body of knowledge that an AI agent has, and it's its knowledge of the world, right? What is a warehouse? What is a box? What is a shelf? What is a product? What is a sales order? Like, it's general knowledge. That's an LLM. And we can improve that knowledge by grounding it in documents from my organization. Policy procedure documents, repair manuals, things that I've talked about before, support guides. We can ground it even in procedures, end user procedures on how to perform an action in SAP, as an example. And a lot of people don't know this, but SAP Business AI has an out-of-the-box connector to SharePoint so that I can ground my LLM in Business AI with internal policy procedure documents 100% off the shelf out of the box. I can buy SAP Business AI, AI capacity units from SAP. I can purchase, I have out-of-the-box capability with AI Launchpad to connect that to SharePoint, to specific document libraries, and I can ground that, right? That's available. And then in Joule, if I'm using Joule, I can ask it questions about things that happened or grounded intelligence from my policy documents, as an example, right? Tool Enhanced, though, is what I really want to focus on today, because this is what we're going to show you today. And I think this is what most people are after. I don't need an LLM to, tell me why is the sky blue. I need an LLM to tell me what is the current order status for this customer or this order, or provide me with a summary of sales for the Western Territory by product group or product category, right? I need it to use a tool to go get data for me, summarize it, bring it back, or potentially perform an action. That action might be creating a transfer order, as I talked about here on this slide here, creating a transfer order for inventory movements based on available space. Let's say you have a scenario, and this is a very real world scenario. In large manufacturing plants, we have staging areas where we stage material. And when that staging area is full, there needs to be a signal to move that product from that area to another area, or move that product into an overflow area, or a signal to go to tell a manager production stopped because the staging areas are full. So I might need to create a transfer order. I might need to send a Teams message. I might need to send an email. Those are tools. Tools are the ability to not only take data in and make a reasonable assumption or follow a set of instructions have my AI agent follow a set of instructions of when I see more than 8 pallets in the staging area, send an alert, or create a transfer order, and send an alert. Right? AI agents can do this. AI agents cannot just be view only. They can perform actions. Because going back to api.sap.com, we have the ability to post documents to SAP APIs, not just read from them. Okay, continuing on, because we're going to move quickly into demo here. And Manuel, I wanted to queue you up because I want to make sure you're ready to share here in about 2 or 3 minutes. But talking about AI agent frameworks, we have LangChain, LangGraph, we have Crew AI, we have Microsoft AutoGen, and there are probably 50 more AI agent frameworks out there available on the internet. In my determination, in Manuel's experience, in my experience, these are kind of the 3 leaders, right? So Microsoft Copilot and Microsoft AutoGen, and the ability to create custom AI agents on Microsoft Azure platform. LangChain, LangGraph, open source, used by numerous organizations out there. And actually SAP, a blog recently, 3 days ago, just posted a blog on how to use LangChain, LangGraph to create an AI agent on BTP. But right now, our favorite is Crew AI. We like Crew AI as an AI agent framework, and the code that you're able to download after this webinar uses Crew AI, open source and free. It uses Crew AI to actually create a group of agents, and we're going to walk through those agents and what they do and what are the tools they use. But Crew AI is super flexible, easy to get started. I can use all LangChain tools in Crew AI. It's very well documented. If I go to deeplearning.org and you look at Crew AI, numerous free classes available on how to create Crew AI agents and multi-agent workflows. LangChain, LangGraph, again, I think it's the foundation of a lot of this. It is highly technical for a non-developer. For example, I'm a non-developer and I'm able to build simple Python applications with Crew AI and get my own AI agents running on my own. Where with LangChain, LangGraph, I have to call, the expert like Emanuele to help me get it started there. A lot of people may or may not know that on SAP BTP, you can run many different LLMs in one place. So for example, if I'm running on GCP, I'm using Gemini models, and it's difficult for me to maybe go use Anthropic or Claude or Mistral or an Olama model, whatnot. SAP has made it available to customers to run numerous AI models, LLMs, and Emmanuel is going to show that later with our LLM model garden and being able to choose that. But in terms of where to run your AI agent, I think one common question is why run it on BTP? And for me, the answer is direct data access to your SAP ecosystem. We have SAP Cloud Connector. We have destinations in BTP to connect S/4HANA Cloud, Public Cloud, S/4HANA Rise, S/4HANA On-Prem, ERP On-Prem, our CX solutions, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Success Factors. BTP is pre-integrated into all of your SAP solutions. It's pre-integrated into Data Cloud, Business Data Cloud, DataSphere, SAP HANA Cloud. Centralized governance, SAP security integration, right? We understand context in BTP when we replicate business roles from your on-premise S4 system into BTP. We know that Emmanuel is an accountant and he has access to S4 roles for accounting, and that Yosh is in sales and has access to S4 roles for sales. We can infer and we understand the business user context by using BTP and leveraging all the integration that we have with S4 and BTP. We can have a simplified security model. But that doesn't mean that AI agents on BTP can only connect to S4 systems. So on this slide, I want to highlight, right? I can create a destination that goes to a third-party WMS. I can create a destination in BTP that goes to ServiceNow, to Salesforce, to any number of on-premise systems, cloud-based systems, and I can have my crew AI and my AI agents running on BTP, connecting to S4 on-prem, connecting to S4 Cloud, Rise, and Grow, also using different LLMs for different purposes. BTP provides that capability and that flexibility to do that. But getting into AI agents specifically now, these three areas here, AI agent attributes, are what we use to control an agent. We define an agent's role. You are a shipping and receiving analyst. What is your goal? Your goal is to review inbound deliveries for the current day, estimate the number of people required, time required, expected time for an inbound delivery door, and understand this information. Once you understand this information, send a summarized statement to the shipping manager each morning, right? So this is that augmented AI agent helping a manager understand when a delivery is coming in or expected to come in based on ASNs, and help me estimate the number of people required to unload that truck. And this is where the backstory comes in and where we can use variables. So we have warehouse as a variable. Your colleague, the data analyst, is going to help you provide a list of AIP endpoints. When you summarize that information, send it to this MS Teams channel. And this is an example of that interaction happening where we have a delivery bot inside of SAP, inside of Microsoft Teams, connected to BTP, right? So the AI agent's running on BTP, and I'm presenting it in Microsoft Teams, and I have 7 inbound deliveries today, and you'll need 6 employees to unload these deliveries, and here's that delivery summary. So with that, and again, I'm going very fast. We will send this recording to everybody as well, but I want to now maybe pause, and Emanuele, let's give Emanuele a chance to share or do a quick exploration of AI Launchpad and Business AI on BTP. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Emanuele, I'll pass it over to you to let you share screen. While he's doing that, though, I want to remind everybody, please use the Q&A chat to ask questions. We will absolutely, we are here to answer any questions, scenario questions you may have. But first, I wanted to pass it over to Emanuele to give a quick tour of the AI Launchpad.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so right now I'm in BTP Cockpit. It's basically where we have access to all of our services and instances. A few things come into play for this because we are integrating with an on-premise system. So 2 things that are very important is a connectivity service and a destination service that we need to set up in order to connect to the on-prem service. Once we have those set up, one other important piece of the puzzle is SAP Core AI, which basically comes as an instance. Once you add it to your sub account, you'll just see it here and you'll be able to create like a service key that then will give you all of the credentials that you need to connect and use that instance. And then one other very important thing is SAP AI Launchpad. SAP AI Launchpad, I have it open here. Let me know if you can see it.
Yep, looks good.
Yeah, and basically SAP AI Launchpad is what is used to manage whatever you are deploying into your core AI instance. So in this case, we have an API connection set up here, which is the API connection that uses that service key for the core AI instance. Once you set up the connection, you're able to access Generative AI Hub or ML operations and deploy certain configurations. So I'm going to show you the model library that Michael was talking about before. Here, it's basically like a list of all of the available models that you can use, the LLM models that you are able to use, and you can also test them. So for example, if you wanted to try out anything here, you could write I don't know, for example, write a short poem.
Everybody loves writing short poems, right?
Right. So this is a way where you can test the different models that are available here. Then we go a little bit more into like customizing, which is inside the ML operations. The ML operations basically let you set up scenarios, configuration, and then deploy those configurations. So for scenarios, for the demo that we're doing today, we're going to use like a default scenario that's provided by the extended version of Business AI in SAP, and we're going to use foundation models, which means basically it makes default models available without having to fine-tune them or ground them on any specific documentation. In the configurations, you're able to create a configuration. I'll show you guys the one that we are using right now.
Now what Manuel is showing here is, one LLM doesn't solve every problem. If you have, and LLMs have different costs or different AI capacity units. So summarizing, a customer's email doesn't require a very high level LLM to use. We could use a very small LLM model to just summarize text. But Emanuele and I, just to share a story, when we were asking an LLM to use an OData endpoint as an example, as a tool, and when we were asking it to do more complex interpretation of JSON responses from SAP APIs, we found that we needed to use a different LLM to be successful in those scenarios. So wanted to let everybody here know that one LLM won't solve every use case. And BTP, or the Business AI Launchpad, SAP's AI Launchpad, allows you to deploy multiple LLM models at different costs based on that scenario that you might be working with.
Right. And basically through configuration, it's the process that you would do that through, because it will allow you to specify the model version, the actual model name, and everything that you want, specifically also parameters that you might want to pass to your LLM. Once you have those configurations set up, you can deploy them. I'll show you here our current deployed one. Once you have deployed your configuration and it's in status running, that means that you can now start making requests to the LLM. SAP provides you with a URL to your specific deployment ID. So basically you can make an HTTP request, obviously with authentication included, to your specific deployment ID, and that will run the request through the LLM that you set up into your configuration. So this is pretty much like the setup for the AI Launchpad. I'm going to explain what we did to pull all of this together later into like an actual front-end version. So what we did is from SAP BTP, we used the SAP Business Application Studio. I'll show you here. Application Studio provides you with development environments. In our case, we created a development environment that uses Python toolkit, and I'll open it here. So this allows us to basically create a Python app and then deploy it on BTP, Cloud Foundry technically. So an important thing is to notice that we have to link this application to our services that I mentioned before for the destination, the connectivity, so that anything that runs here and trying to retrieve data from your on-premise system will have the access through the destination and connectivity services. So once you set up, this is the sample code that we'll give you guys, but I can go through it a little bit at high level.
Yeah, and this is where everybody, just to highlight, you are looking at a developer tool, right? So you're looking at the integrated development environment, aka Business Application Studio, where a professional developer works to deploy applications. And what Emmanuel is showing on his screen right now is a set of code that we're sharing with all the attendees here today. And you can see here three things: tools, agents, and tasks. So, Manuel, can you talk through the tools first, and just maybe two or three of them? Just highlight two or three tools. What are these tools doing?
So in our case, what we're doing is basically the first tool. It's like API metadata tool, which basically will get the available APIs out of the box. In our case, we are feeding this script JSON files with that information, but I mean that can be retrieved anywhere. You are able to customize those tools, and they're basically code, Python code. So in our case here, this is, for example, retrieving all of the metadata that it's available for the different endpoints. Columns tools is then retrieving the columns or the fields that are available for a specific service table that we have retrieved from the API metadata tool. And then the endpoint validator tool validates the input the decision from the LLM. So the reason is because we support two different services right now, one for delivery and one for sales order. So we have a first classifier agent that basically will use these two tools to decide which service it's most correct to use compared to the prompt that the user is sending. So once it makes that decision, this endpoint validator tool is used to verify that the decision made by the AI agent is correct, and then it is in fact choosing a service that is available. Later on, we passed to a query tool or an SAP query date formatting tool, which is used then by another agent, which is the database analyst, to build a OData request for the service that is being identified by the classifier, and then make that request to that service to retrieve data. Our last agent is an editor, which takes basically the prompt from the user and the data retrieved by the data analyst and creates a short summary of that data and returns it to the user. All of those agents are basically grouped into a crew here, and each one of them has a task, like the classifying task, the API selection task, which are the tasks that we just talked about that use those tools and then get assigned to a classifier, to an agent to be ran. What we can do is also include variables into the definitions for role, backstory, and goal for both the tasks and the agents, and I'll show those in a second. But basically, once we kick off the crew, we can pass those as actual inputs here that then will be basically incorporated into the definitions. And I'm going to go to those definitions right now. So for example, those are our three agents. If you remember what Michael was saying initially, we must define a role, a goal, and a backstory for each agent. So in this case, as you can see, like this, for example, is a variable, and it's one of the variables that we're passing dynamically to the crew when we're kicking it off. Same thing with request is the prompt from the user.
And I
On
want
top of, yep, go
to,
on.
and I just wanted to interrupt real quick. So, and here's where I think people should have questions, and please use that Q&A area to ask questions. You are looking at, the IDE, and you are looking at a piece of code, but the agent roles and the descriptions are not really determined by the developer. I mean, Emanuele is inputting it into the program, but this is where there's a collaborative nature to this work where a business analyst, a subject matter expert, a business person is helping you think through, you, the developer, you, an architect, you, a development manager. We're working collaboratively to write in plain English what we want these agents to do. And there's lots of content available on the internet right now about AI agent structure and setup, and there's many reasons why you don't have a monolithic single agent. So we're not going to create an agent called HAL, and HAL is this all-seeing agent that does everything. No, we're not doing that. You can see Emanuele and I here in our code, we've got the classifier, which is classifying the user request. Is this person asking about a sales order, or is this person asking about a delivery, right? Classifying that. You have the database analyst, which probably should be called OData analyst, and their job is to look at, based on the OData APIs that SAP provides or that I'm aware of, which is the right API I should use. And then lastly, the customer service agent, right? So crafting a response based on that JSON response that comes from the API. When I call an SAP API and it gives me back data in a JSON format, it needs to be interpreted. It needs to be summarized in a way that the end user can respond. We can't just send them the JSON file. We need to summarize it for them. And so in this case, there are 3 agents. Can you have 5 agents? Yes. Can you have 6 agents? Yes. Can a classifier agent potentially pass tasks off to different people? I'm asking about a sales order in this request, classified as a sales order, but now I'm asking about an expense reporting scenario. Okay, well, go to the expense reporting agent who knows all about the internal policies and allow that agent to query those policies and come back and bring a response, right? So this is where the creativity comes in designing AI agents. And SAP is, again, going to provide a Joule agent builder that's going to have a UI. But if I have a requirement or I have a desire or a need to create a custom AI agent that I control fully, and I can put guardrails in and I can control it 100%, that's where this scenario comes in, where I can build an application running on BTP, running on Cloud Foundry. And Manuel, I know you're going to go through the task. Maybe just do 1 or 2 tasks, but then also, I don't know if you can show in the code where we're calling the SAP Business AI LLM, just to link that for people.
Yep. So the way it works for our code is that Crew AI provides basically out-of-the-box LLM to be used, including Gemini. But in our case, obviously, we don't want to use the out-of-the-box through them, because obviously you would have to provide like an API key and have a service set up for that specific model. But we're instead using Core AI, so through SAP. So we want to make the request to our deployment URL. In this case, the deployment URL is built programmatically, where the deployment ID is nothing but what I showed you earlier, which is this deployment ID up here. And we're just making that request to a specific endpoint, which is the one that we were seeing into the deployments, which is this one. It comes out to this one, basically. And then we append the path to the model, the specific model that we want. In our case, we're using Flash 1.5, Gemini Flash 1.5. So we're gonna make the request with this appended path at the end. Each model, depending on the service that you're using, might have slightly different setups. So that's why it's important for us to like override the base class and specify how to make that request and how to parse the response. In our case, we're making an authorization with a bearer token, and we're using like defined static credentials at the moment, but those credentials can be retrieved obviously dynamically when building the actual URL request. And then we are processing the response depending on the model structure that we're expecting back. This basically is used, we don't actually call this manually from the code in any way. We're just defining it. And then the agents and the crew AI code, it's actually what is interacting with this model and calling this default call function to run the request through our core AI model. So let's go to the tasks. So the tasks here, there's quite a bit, but we can look, for example, at the query or data one. This task basically just tells the agent that's assigned to it, which is the database analyst, that they would need to use the tool that we provide, which is the OData query tool, to make the request based off of basically what we need to retrieve and what the actual classifier before into the classify task and the API selection class task decided that we need to prompt basically. Once tasks, agents, and tools are defined, we can kick off the crew. And once we kick off the crew, everything happens behind the scenes. And I can show you guys real quick. I don't know if we have enough time, but this is our front end simple application. It's just really just a chat, a React chat. Whenever we send a message, we're making a request to our deployed Python script. So the Python script will then interact with the LLM, but we're not interacting directly with the LLM from here. We're interacting with our crew. So for example, I'm asking about sales order A651, and we can look into the logs here to see what's going on behind the scenes. So let me show you here. Request classifier agent starts in. It basically has that task of classifying. If you can see, the labels have been pulled in dynamically as delivery or sales order. So it needs to classify between one of those. It comes up with a final answer called sales order. It then goes into the API metadata tool. So it tries to pull the API metadata information. As you can see, for example, here, it's using the tool incorrectly. So the agent is smart enough to know that it used the tool incorrectly, and then it needs to attempt to use it correctly. And in this case, it provided correctly the classification label, and that's getting the tool output now.
So what I wanted to highlight on the screen here, everybody, is these are the logs behind the scenes. And Emanuele, can you scroll up a little bit? Yep. You can see here the AI agent has a thought, right? Thought. You should always think about what you do. Observation, thought. I can now give a final answer or a great answer as it thinks it's a great answer. And so that's what's really unique here, is that it's using the LLM as a foundational body of knowledge. We've told it about SAP APIs, and you can see behind the scenes the AI agent selecting a sales order API called API_sales order serve, right? That's the standard S4 API. And that is going against a on-premise BTP system. Now, we can talk for hours on this topic, and we are trying to keep the session to 45 minutes. And I'm hoping what we've done is give you sort of a preview of, yes, I can build an AI agent on my own. I can leverage BTP. I can leverage SAP Business AI. I can connect to my on-premise systems or any system that I want to. And I have that flexibility and capability to design AI agents specific to my business use case. I do have a few more slides to share. So Emanuele, I'm going to take over sharing real quick. And I think it's great that Emanuele showed those logs, right? So seeing the AI agents actually working, seeing them thinking, which is so fantastic. So we do have a couple more links here on the slides that we'll send to you all. The generative AI SDK that SAP provides, that Microsoft bot framework link, teaching you how to bring AI agents in the bot framework. Again, we're big fans of Crew AI. There's many AI agent frameworks you can use. And then SAP, again, has this new blog out here that I found 3 days ago called Building AI Agentic System with Generative AI Hub. And they're specifically using LangChain in this blog, in this example. So lots of different examples out there in the marketplace for us to use and to source from. I'm going to go ahead and go to the QA panel here. Well, Emanuele already answered this, but do you need a Joule to use these AI agents or connect to on-prem? And the answer is no. So Joule is a separate product offering from SAP that is licensed separately. It has its own UI pre-built by SAP, delivered by SAP within SAP Fiori, within SAP BTP. These AI agents that we're building on BTP in the sample code that you'll receive, I can extend those agents to Microsoft Teams as the UI. I can extend it to a React application. I can put it in a UI5 application. I can put it in a Fiori Launchpad as an example. And so when talking about these AI agents sharing with you today, these are full custom AI agents that you're able to deploy. Now, another question that was raised to me is, Michael, what is the cost of some of these things? And just to be very transparent, I'll show you our cost. So back here in SAP BTP, I have my global account here. I have my costs and usage, and I have my sub account for my AI prototypes. And we have an AI prototype environment that is consuming $2 a month this month, prior month $11. And our scenario is a little bit unique in that Manuel and I are running classes where we have 25 AI agents running with 25 LLMs being used with randomly amount of access and usage. And you can see that it's not a break the bank type prototype. Now, in your environment, you may have thousands of users running thousands of requests, and the costs will be different. We're in the hundreds of requests scenario, and we're spending a handful of dollars a month on a BTP pay-as-you-go agreement. We would absolutely recommend that customers engage with SAP or an SAP partner like VASS to purchase an enterprise agreement in order to pre-purchase these units and have more value and more discounts available to them. But what I'm hoping I've shared with is you can absolutely start today on BTP with a pay-as-you-go agreement to build prototypes and to understand and measure what is the potential cost we might incur if we go from 500 requests a month to 5,000 to 50,000, as an example. These capabilities are accessible and attainable without an enterprise agreement. I can use a pay-as-you-go agreement to get started, to pilot, to prototype, and then move into an enterprise agreement when I'm ready to productionize. A next question that's coming in is, what role does Knowledge Graph play, and is it needed to bake business context, especially when integrating with non-SAP systems? So SAP Knowledge Graph as part of SAP HANA or SAP DataSphere or SAP Business Data Cloud is not required in this scenario. An AI agent, specifically Crew AI and LangChain LangGraph, can leverage standard SQL against any database. AI agents have the ability with their own knowledge to select from the schema to understand data there. If the metadata in the schema isn't interpretable, meaning the column is not user, it's Mandat, for an example, MADT, right? An AI agent's not going to know that that column means user or client you're using. So I may have to enhance it. So I could use Knowledge Graph to enhance an AI agent's knowledge of a non-SAP business data, non-SAP systems. I will let you know, though, that standard third-party systems like ServiceNow, like Salesforce, like Manhattan, third-party warehouse management systems and their APIs, they typically have very good API documentation that I can pass to an AI agent, and then I don't need to use Knowledge Graph. Knowledge Graph absolutely has its place in its use cases, and we have the capability through API documentation to pass that knowledge to an AI agent, so I don't need to use Knowledge Graph. Again, it's an it depends answer, but thinking creatively, we can pass AI agent documentation to an API documentation to an agent, allow that agent to use that, and then if that doesn't suffice, we can use Knowledge Graph in SAP HANA in order to fine-tune with more specific information and business context. So with that, trying to end on time, we're a few minutes overdue. We will absolutely send the slides out to all the registered attendees. We will send the recording out. We thank you so much for your time today. We hope that everybody has a wonderful afternoon. We will hang around in the Q&A if there's any additional questions. But thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Emanuele. Thank you, Yosh, for hosting. And thank you for your time, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Have a good one.
VASS. Complex made simple.